Ma'am, so storytelling, do you think can have an impact on mental health of children?
Definitely, all about psychology. So my point is, stress hona hi nahi chahiye. Don't you enjoy as an adult?
Yes.
You're reliving your childhood, and those are the moments where you just, if it's a fairy tale, you move into a magical world with your kids, and also these are modes of escape.
Morning, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking out your time for Simply Spiritual. So, at Simply Spiritual, we're a team of three girls, Gayatri, Seerat, and me, and we are working on bringing out issues related to conscious parenting. So, we're trying to bring out such topic and have discussions on such topics, and we're so thankful to you to come today.
Thank you, Geet, for inviting me, and actually, you're doing commendable job.
Thank you. So today's topic, ma'am, as you know, is shaping character of children through storytelling. And there could have not been a better guest on this topic than you. Let me give a brief introduction to the audience about ma'am. She's Dr. Meenu A. Gupta. She's a professor of cultural studies and English with the Punjab University. She has a long list of accomplishments. I'm going to mention only a few because of paucity of time. She's been granted the Grants and Aid Award for her work in poetry, and she's also supervised many students for their MPhil and their PhDs. And ma'am is an author. She has authored 4 books. I'm going to come back to the books, but before that, I want to tell everyone how we met. So we met roughly about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued and I wanted to learn Sanskrit. I happened to find the Sanskrit class in Punjab University, and you were also a fellow student in that class, and we studied Sanskrit, the language together, Bhagavad Gita together, and we went on to
sung Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, we sung Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. Yeah, it was a very creative way of our respected teacher to the way he taught us Sanskrit
Definitely.
was and Gita was
And we completed our master's, Geet.
Yes,
4 of us.
you went on to do that.
Uh-huh.
You completed your masters
Yeah.
in Sanskrit, and we read Shastras in Sanskrit. One of them was the Sankhya. And in fact, that was the point when I wanted to do this talk on storytelling, because I really felt that, oh my God, storytelling has such an impact on children, and I want to talk about this. The person that I could think of was you, because I felt that storytelling is philosophical, and I remember you telling me about some of your works which were very closely related to philosophy. And in fact, one of the reasons that you were studying the Sanskrit Shastras were because you wanted to do a comparison between Indian philosophy
and French philosopher. Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah. So storytelling, again, being a very philosophical subject, so that's when I thought that I could connect with you. And then I learned that you've authored a book on Indian stories. This is the book called Mapping Ethical Turn Through Indian Tales. And I was like, okay, I couldn't have been in a better place. So, ma'am, let's begin our discussion. I do believe that storytelling is a great tool in shaping character of children. And we're literally imparting complex philosophical lessons to children in a very fun way. So, what do you think about, first of all, storytelling as an art or as a tool for shaping character in children?
Storytelling and human beings, I think, I would not even say synonymous they are two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
Because what are we doing in our daily lives? We are always telling stories. Stories can be in the form of structured, in the sense you were talking about fables. And if you go to religion, it can be parables. When we're talking, even gossiping about people, what are we doing? We are narrating our experiences with those people, right?
Yeah.
So I think from the day of conception till the funeral rites, what are we doing? We are remembering the dead, telling stories about him. Of course, all good stories come after death. That's a separate thing.
Yeah.
And if we talk about children, which is our main target audience in this talk,
Yes, ma'am.
I just read in the morning that a child, he paints before he writes, right? He sings before he speaks. And the moment he is taught or he stands, he starts dancing. So art is a form of expression in human beings, and storytelling is one form of art.
Love
When
it.
we look at the picture, a painting, it's a story.
Yes.
creative writers, they use prompts, so they'll just show a pic, and then students have to carve out a story out of it. What happened before that picture, what happened after. So it's how you propel imagination out of children. So it's
Absolutely.
the fundamental form of expression.
Yes.
Yeah.
So storytelling, apart from imparting lessons, also enhances imagination in children.
And I would also add here, it's not only telling, it is showing. And
Okay.
you must be, because you're a young mother, you must have experienced that schools, they have show and tell.
Yes.
So howsoever you tell a child, don't do this, he will do it. We know. We have that experience. But you show that this is what I am doing. So that is imbibing.
Yes.
Imbibing happens at subconscious level. And when it happens at subconscious level, it is actually looking at emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Right? Subconscious belief system is being transformed. And when your belief system is transformed, it will definitely come into your action.
Absolutely. So, ma'am, how do you think Indian tales are placed in this context?
Indian tales, if you're talking about, in my book also, I've taken Panchtantra, Hitopdesh, then moved on to Buddhist tales, Jataka.
Yes.
Right, and Aesop tales, as I've told, that it is from the Middle East, but it has some Indian claims, so I included those also.
Okay.
And the second part of my book talks about management tales. So in that, I wanted to bring in wit, and I included Akbar Birbal stories.
Okay.
And I wanted also not to lose out on strategists and statesmanship of Chanakya. So these all I've sort of drawn a canvas on widely diversified ones. And Panchtantra and Hitopdesh, they are sort of, Panchtantra comes after Hitopdesh, right? And they're more elaborative, divided into 4 sections, which deals with friendship, losing friendship, and enemies, 4 sections. And very nicely, it moves on to Jatak, which includes bodhisattvas. So bodhisattvas is a person who's common in most of the Jatak tales, and he's a person who's very near, it's closest to Buddha, means after that nirvana happens. So you can see that how important stories are, that it leads us to that level of perfection. Because I have read that in philosophy, that man is superior to God. Why? Because man is always heading towards perfection.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I hope I've answered.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, I can draw from this that right from Hitopdesh and Panchtantra, which are stories essentially for kids, to Chanakya, Indian literature caters to children, to people, to CEOs, because a lot of politics actually. Chanakya was his Niti Shastra or Chanakya Niti is
strategy.
strategy.
Politics enters, and that's also remarkable.
In fact, some of his work is questions from some of his work are asked in examinations related
He's
to
an Indian Machiavelli, and but with all the the difference between West and Indian, if I just enumerate, one of that is, it's a very holistic approach we hold. Like in West, it is duality, bad and good.
Yes.
Here it is asuras and suras. If I bring in Indian mythology also, they are essential for creation.
Creation, absolutely.
They are, and I recall a story where Asur and Devta, they approach Brahma, and they say, now we are hungry, please give us food. So he gives the food, and he gives very long spoons, right? So they say, how can we feed ourselves with the spoons?
Which are so long.
You have to feed each other.
Okay.
The long spoons you have to use. So this is a sort of management, that if you're given some hurdle, and how to overcome that to your advantage. So it can come in Chanakya Niti, it can come as a management tool, and it can also be shown to children that there's nothing duality.
Yeah.
They are 2 parts of the existence.
Yes.
Right?
Non-dualism, Advait, our Vedanta is all related to that, but we're going to come back to children.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, ma'am, when we come to talk about storytelling, what kind of stories do you think are important to be narrated to children?
In this Geet, I would again, address this question in a way that let us not structure.
Okay.
This is what modernism had done. If I just bring in literature background, okay, this is imagism, this is, this isms came in.
Okay.
But with the again, from our previous talk in which talked about, non-dualities.
Hanji.
So we should not, what type? Every anecdote has something to be given. So this is, I'll bring in difference between morals and ethics.
Okay.
So if in convents we had moral science as a subject.
Yes.
So what was that? A short story with a moral at the end.
Hanji.
Panchtantra has animals,
Hanji.
right? Animals because they are universalized characters.
Okay.
Humans would always imbibe something from non-humans because then there is no contextualization.
Okay.
Right? So animals can be, and very amazingly, they don't have classes, differences in class, caste, gender.
Yes,
When
that
we read
doesn't.
an animal story, it's not okay whether he or she, that sort of. So
Okay.
it universalizes and generalizes in a way that it gives child a freedom to think more.
Okay. In fact, a lot of Panchtantra stories have animal-based
No,
characters.
it is all of them.
Okay, all of them.
All of them. Panchtantra and Hitopdesh, they're all on animals.
So there must have been a specific thought gone into while writing these stories that why only animal characters.
Yeah, because how it began, Panchtantra began.
So that's a wonderful actually story knitted around, not knitted, it's actually truth. So I'd like to share that with the audience. In around 200 BC, there was a king called Sudarshan, and he had 3 princes. And that king thought that his princes were not fit enough to take on the kingdom. They were not wise enough. And he took advice from his council of ministers that what should he do to educate the children in a way that they are smart and wise enough to be future kings. So the council advised that there is an Indian scholar by the name of Vishnu Sharma, and he could take care of that. And he was invited to the court, and he said that you need to give me your sons for 6 months. And that is when Pandit Vishnu Sharma wrote these stories of Panchtantra divided into 5 books. That's why Panch and Tantra treatise. And they deal with themes such as winning over friends, losing friends, diplomacy, relationships, and so much. So these are stories actually that can make kings out of, or leaders, if we were to translate it in today's terms, so leaders out of regular children. So that's the power these tales
have. Right. So I was talking about differences between moral and ethic.
Yes.
So it's, when you say, okay, you don't have to stop at, you have to stop at red light, you can go. So this is, you're imparting moral. That is for holding a society together. That, okay, if you won't stop at red light, you might, endanger your life, right? So if stealing, so second example is that you don't have to steal. That's a bad thing. So this is morals.
Hanji.
So it's a structured thing.
Yes.
But when we come to Niti Shastra or ethics, it is something which we imbibe. So it's not, that what will happen. It's just that because it's a red light, some rule, I have to stop because I cannot endanger anybody or myself.
Yes.
So similarly, steal. So it teaches that yes, taking somebody else's thing is a bad thing.
Yes.
But then you have to see what is being taken, who takes it. So, a parent, a role of parent and a teacher comes in here.
Yes.
That if a child who's a very hungry child and he's eating, he's stealing and eating from a sweet shop, that cannot be equated to a person who's taking bribe, well-to-do person who's taking bribe in his office.
Absolutely.
So this is the difference between ethical Indian stories and morals that are mostly, because in West it's a linearity that moves on.
Yes.
You are born, you die, you come from sand, you go in sand. But here in Indian it is circularity.
Yes.
Because of karmic theory. So I don't want to delve again into philosophy.
But I'd like to dwell on that circularity. In fact, the whole nature depicts circularity. The water cycle is circularity. Seasons are circularity. Nature is depicting to us that there is no beginning or end. So definitely what you mentioned is correct. Where I think the matter of the soul comes in. So there is no birth or death. we are just moving in cycles.
Yeah.
So yes, things like morals and ethics, जो आपने अभी बात करी,
जी.
it's very difficult to tell children these minor details, or imbibing is actually the best way, because there is actually no other way of
experience
teaching these things to children.
Experiential, yeah. So
Yeah.
I am reminded of a story, if I'm allowed to.
Yes, please, ma'am.
So, and it's a sort of, it's a Panchtantra story. The story is about that geese promises tortoise that it will flew it away to some place to show it, but you have to promise that you won't speak.
Yeah,
so it's a
because
talkative tortoise.
just slightly moving back into the story, this for the sake of the audience, that there is a pond and the fish in the pond are dying, and the geese, one of the geese flies, and the pond is also slowly drying up, and the geese says, oh, there is another pond close by, we're going to fly there, and the tortoise says that what's going to happen to me? So the geese say that we will help you and get you to the new home, but you can hold on to the stick, but you have to be quiet. So
Right.
yeah, ma'am, please carry on.
Yeah, now I'll give you an example that how it is, we can take it further.
Yes.
How the parents can take it further and conjoin 2 or 3 stories together.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing is talkative tortoise, right?
Yes.
And the other thing is helping.
And
third is that when you don't listen to, a person who's helping you.
Yeah.
So, this story, as you've narrated, it moves on in Jatak, where it is being, this whole thing is being looked by a minister in a kingdom, where a king is very talkative person, and he wants to teach a lesson, but he's unable to do, because sometimes kings, they don't listen to their ministers. So tortoise, it falls in front of them, and then king says, okay, what has happened? So he narrates the whole story, and king, he gets to know, okay, this is something which is signaling to me that this is how I should be just speaking, how much is required.
Yes.
Right? And then there's another story in Panchtantra about 3 fishes, because we talked about the pond, which is drying up, and fishes have to be rescued.
Yeah.
So 3 fishes is a story where the 3 fishes, they are different in temperament. One is thoughtless, one is thoughtful, but thoughtful more than required, and one is balanced.
Okay.
So the thoughtless fish jumps out and dies, and a fish which is very thoughtful, she remains in the pond and she dies
because she's not able to take a decision.
Yeah. And the third one, which has a balanced approach to her life, she waits for the right time to come and takes help of a person and comes out. So this is another story. One story is the base story which you narrated, and the third story is a story which we can say it's an extended story, which is adapted in Jatak.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, the fish story that you just narrated, I'd say it has so many lessons to teach just in one. That the first fish, the thoughtless fish who jumped out, it can teach children about being impulsive.
Definitely.
Yes. And the one who thinks overthinks,
right,
can teach them about
the importance of actions versus
yeah,
overthinking.
At the same time, it is also teaching them about decision making. And the one who gives a thought and waits for the right opportunity, this teaches them about patience.
Definitely.
So it's actually so many things, and we need not even concisely or we need not even articulate everything to children that this fish teaches you this.
No, definitely.
They're going to absorb
imbibe and absorb, right?
Imbibing.
It's a psychological thing that's happening. So it's not that now the child will say, I'm not a fish. So she or he will respond at a time when such situation arises.
Yes.
So she will, it's not that she is going to memorize, it has she has already imbibed, and she'll react accordingly with a balanced and peaceful mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, what do you think should be the right age of introducing storytelling in children? And do you think that storytelling is applicable only to young children, or will it work with teenage kids or even kids who are in their 20s? And if yes, then how should we narrate stories vis-a-vis to a young children, vis-a-vis someone who's a teenager or a slightly older child?
No, I don't think so, Geet. That's something which we can really, put or categorize for certain age groups,
Okay.
because I think learning is a part of a human being. We learn till our last breath, right? And we always we emulate in stories. To maybe, even if I am adult, I would like to read prime minister's biography, so that will be an anecdote. So I don't think so there's any age. Even as a parent of a young adult or a person who's going on a job, I have stories to tell that person, my teenage daughter also, because stories is a mode where we can approach any psyche of a child or young adult or even elders.
Yes.
And also, we have a genre, a separate genre of children's literature, which can never have a definition of children's literature, because it's who writes. Harry Potter, okay, it's young adult literature.
Yes.
But who writes?
It's
Rowling
the-
writes.
Yes.
She's adult.
Yes.
So children's literature as such cannot be defined, and there's no age, because
Yes.
it is just giving you an example, that because now I'm looking at the other side of what we imbibe.
Yes.
So I may be imbibing something in my home which I don't like,
Yes.
but I don't have freedom to express because I have my parental guidance. But when I am living with such stories, whenever the right time comes, it can be 20s, 30s, 40s, I can always rectify what I have been doing, because my heart didn't belong to it. So
Yes.
it's not that parents are always correct. So,
Absolutely.
but then there has to be wisdom and right time with which we rectify and give edge to our thought system. So I think it's an eternal process with which we live, and
Yes.
we should not actually, just turn our face and
Yes.
say that we are adults and we don't need stories. No, that should not happen.
Absolutely. In fact, I would say, grown up with storytelling, and I would really, commend my father for that, because he used to tell us a lot of stories. Stories not like from literature or something, but stories about people,
That's what I'm
stories
saying,
about
yeah.
people around us, about himself,
Yeah.
about how he grew out of his difficulties. In fact, those are also
Yeah,
stories, and they were so
they are.
inspiring.
Definitely, and you might be reading the stories to your children, and
Yes.
don't you enjoy as an adult?
Yes,
You're reliving your
absolutely.
childhood, and those are the moments where you just, if it's a fairy tale, you move into
Yes.
magical world with your kids, and
Yes.
also these are modes of escape. And if I speak psychologically, this escape is to come back empowered. Those are the moments where your all the contractions in the mind, whatever your beta theta waves, they are balanced, and they bring you back and more empowered, and to face the challenges with more energy.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so over here, I'd like to come to a point you had mentioned while we were discussing before we began our podcast. You mentioned about fancy dress in children, that how that is also sort of a taking children into a storyland, and how fancy dress
Yeah.
can be important for children. Could you elaborate on
Sure.
that?
Because we were talking about stereotypes, and I wanted to cut it, that stereotypes are created by us.
Okay.
Right, by the society, by the parents. Like if I am a parent and I am an orthodox parent.
Yes.
So not that I don't, I'm very liberal. So we have to see again, whom are we teaching, what the circumstances are, how the society is.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Ma'am, before we go ahead on stereotypes, I'd like to mention
Sure.
a small research study about stereotypes, and bring in the context of
Sure.
stereotypes for this question. So, in fact, in 2016, there was a study done by Sarah Coyon, and she did a research on 300 preschool children. And in the research, she found that children who played and who also watched Disney princesses had magnified gender stereotyping, imbibed
Right.
into them.
Uh-huh.
So that's the impact storytelling, like stories like Princess and the Pea or Cinderella or any other, like Elsa is a very popular character. So children who are playing with these characters and watching these stories, they have amplified gender stereotyping effects in their psychology. So yeah, ma'am. So now please.
Okay, so I'll just take a bit of time to answer that, because
Yes.
that will include a lot of aspects. One is talking about stereotype. So it has two aspects. One is that we construct stereotype when we demand, when we segregate pink and blue. pink is for girls and blue is for,
Yes.
so that is what we are doing. Blue and pink in themselves, they are not gender biased.
Yes.
So when we give trucks to a boy child and dolls, so we are stereotyping, not the toys themselves.
Yes.
So I think again, it's a parental and teacher's responsibility that how they want to bring the child up. And we have to look at, because we are living in a time where we have liberty for LGBTQ
Yes.
rights and all. So we should not be snubbing a child
Yes.
for any natural,
Tendency.
tendency and inclination. That should not be done.
Yes, ma'am.
And having said that, it is how we create and how we label them as stereotype, because we were talking about dresses and all. Because when Cinderella was written, we had ball dancers, we had those magical elements, we had those forests, and then forests and all, they're all symbolic.
Yes.
Right? So forest is something, you can portray forest as equivalent to emotion of fear, but then it's all about opportunities also. So it's how you see which side of that symbol you want to
Yes.
bring and raise your child
And
on.
what we emphasize upon.
What you
So, for
emphasize
example,
on,
if it was Cinderella, if we emphasize on her goodness rather than what is happening today is
Yes,
with
yeah.
commercialization,
Capitalism, yeah.
we end up emphasizing on the merchandise, what she was wearing, because that is what can be sold. So
Capitalist world, yeah.
yeah, so that is what is creating the gender stereotype rather than the story
Yeah.
itself. In fact, there was this movie, Rocky Ki Rani Ki Prem Kahani,
Yeah.
that we just discussed. The issue of gender stereotyping is so rightly addressed in that movie.
Definitely, yeah.
With, if
Yeah,
you would.
sure. Talking about the story, there, Alia Bhatt is portraying character from Calcutta. She's a Bengali character, and her father, he had trouble in his childhood convincing his father that he wants to be a Kathak dancer.
Yes.
And then when he wants to showcase, and Alia Bhatt's family is also there, that's some festival, and he's a laughing stock for all the North Indians and all.
It was their wedding,
Yeah, and then it's told that dance does not have any gender. It is we who have sort of affiliated dance to females and all. So I'm also reminded of an anecdote from Mirza Ghalib.
Okay.
So Ghalib, because those were the times in which Hindus and Muslims, they would celebrate all the festivals together. So then in this one incident, Ghalib was enjoying Diwali with the kids and all, and he was offered barfi. So there was an elder person who's Orthodox Muslim. I think, आप तो बर्फी खा रहे हैं, हाँ, दिवाली की. तो कह अच्छा दिवाली का भी कोई बर्फी का कोई मजहब होता है. तो फिर मुझे बताइए, as says humorous tone, जलेबी का कौन सा मजहब होता है.
So ma'am, this is bringing me back to the point that the Panchtantra stories have so much of animal characters. That is again, I think that would safeguard against creating stereotypes, especially gender stereotypes, again in the children's mind. And when there are no stereotypes, there is no influence on thought. So the child can actually be fluid in his life without sticking to a particular thought, which the society is conditioning onto the child.
Yeah, because, Panchtantra mein, yes, we are saying that animals are better than humans in the sense that they're universal. There's no caste problem, there's no class problem, there's no gender. But of course, now we have animal studies. So animal study people would say, why, when you're portraying a lion and why fox is always greedy. So animal studies, we have gone so far that we, even with the animals,
we've not left that either.
So we cannot say we are being animalistic was a adjective that was used for, you have animal instincts would not be prime instinct or basic instincts. It would be that you are ravisher. But now the animal studies would say, no, why? Animals are, you can't just, categorize them also. Like
we've also stereotyped that lion is the king of the jungle. Like while we were talking, this thought came to my head that not just in relevance with gender stereotyping, but also about like the morals that we draw out from a story and give to children. Probably we should not do that. We should just read a story and let the child take out the crux from it, because by imposing or feeding a moral to the child, or by through, I mean, through our version of, you know, what we draw from the
Definitely,
story,
yeah.
we could probably influence what the child would draw. So maybe these stories which have been written with so much thought should be just read as it is and left to the
Definitely, I
child's
think so.
imagination.
Yeah, that should
What
be
would
done. Yeah, and even if I talk about structure of Panchtantra, so we don't have morals. So it's when we read Panchtantra, tales, they are interwoven with prose and verse. So
Okay.
prose, so the tales would end with some verse. It would be moralistic in a sense, but then it is something which a child can enjoy because it's a poetic rendition.
Okay.
So it's that, because don't we should not just limit stories to only tales,
Hmm.
anecdotes, as you were talking
Yes.
about your father,
Yes.
narrating stories.
Yes.
Any anecdote can become a story when it has some plot, it has character, right?
Hmm.
It can become a parable, and the same thing can become personified, where your traits are personified,
Okay.
right?
Could you give an example of
Like if
traits
i
being?
say if i say that when we were talking about tortoise and geese, right?
Yes.
So I will not talk about animals, I'll just talk about talkativeness. So what I've done, I've personified. So
Okay.
talkative, which is an attribute, which is an adjective given to a human being,
Hmm.
that is personified. So we will say good man, or good is talking to bad. So that is personification,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
right?
Right, ma'am.
So they are interchangeable. We have
Yes.
ballets.
Yes, ma'am.
We have in singers, minstrels,
Hmm.
like Bowls of Calcutta, if you know.
Okay. No,
they
ma'am, I'm not
those are
aware.
singing people, हर
Oh,
एक
yes.
कल्चर में हमारे
Yes.
होता था
Yes.
ना कि
Hanji.
वो गाते ही जाते हैं.
Yes.
We have
The folk
ballets of
singers. Hanji.
West. We have Kathak itself.
Hanji.
Kathak also narrates a story.
Yes.
So story
It's a
is
story
not only
narrative. Even Bharatnatyam is a.
Bharatnatyam
Even,
tells
ma'am, the
stories.
musicals that
बिल्कुल
happen there.
बिल्कुल.
There are musicals on Cinderella. There are musical on so many movies. In
Yeah.
fact, Moana is a very beautiful movie for children, which
Hmm.
has a good, I mean, it's a beautiful story with good values to be
Okay.
taught to children, and it's a musical.
Musical.
So yeah, music, in fact, is another way of making stories more interesting.
I'm actually telling you that any expressive thing will have a story behind it.
Behind it, absolutely.
And I can see a mandala art there. So it's an abstract, we can have a story out of it.
Yes, ma'am.
That also. Yeah.
And ma'am, when we come to reading a story as it is without giving our opinion on it to children, there is also the concept of flash adaptations
Okay.
coming in.
Yeah.
Could you tell the audience about what are flash
Sure.
adaptations and how we can start adapting them into the storytelling for our children?
Yeah. So I'll bring in here the importance of myth in storytelling,
Yes.
because myth is what life is. With myth, we enter into culture, we embed culture into myth, and it is life. And how, what I'm trying to say is that if there is a Cinderella story, right, which we read in our childhood, then why Cinderella is being revisited for so many years, right? Why we know the story, but why we are still fond of. So that is what you're talking about, that relevance, which a grandmother used to tell a story was a story of Cinderella. Then why a child who is hooked to digital world, right, mobiles and all, how will that reading be relevant?
Yes.
When there are no grandmothers as such, living in nuclear families.
Yes.
So here I would say that even digital world has, because we have to grow and evolve. So
Yes.
stories have to change and get adapted to the contemporary, because that's known as contemporization of a story, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if one is temporal and one is spatial, right? So
what would you mean by temporal and spatial?
I'm coming to it. So temporal means that if a Cinderella is made to lose her footwear in 21st century in India, it will not be acceptable and relatable.
Okay.
Because we don't have ball dances, and ball dance as such, it's not something to do with India.
Yes.
So one thing is that Cinderella is just one type of story which can be adapted by any country. So
Okay.
if I want a Cinderella to be reenacted or rewritten in my Punjab, say, then I would have a Jatti as a Cinderella.
Okay.
So she will not wear a
A
gown,
ball
she will wear
dress.
a
Yes.
fulkari and all. So
Okay.
this is what we are doing. We are contextualizing.
Yes.
So a child, a Punjabi girl will relate to that Cinderella
Yes.
क्योंकि उसके पास फुलकारी है, उसने देखी है
Yes.
ना? So this is contextualizing. So temporally means time. So
Okay.
how we make something which is timed, timeless,
Right.
right? So Cinderella, if there was a remake of Cinderella in 2016 or 18 by Hollywood, so there Cinderella would lose a mobile phone.
Oh, instead of a shoe.
Yeah, she's going to pub or she's going to dance. So she's
Absolutely.
so that's something which is you're contemporizing.
The children today would feel bad about losing a mobile phone over losing a shoe.
Definitely. So you
Yeah.
relate to it. So
Yes.
we don't have one Cinderella, we have 300 Cinderellas. So Maria Tartar is a
Oh, I didn't.
folklorist. So
I
there are
never knew.
300 Cinderellas. So Scandinavian Cinderella would be different than Indian Cinderella. So we have 300 versions of Cinderella, which have people like, people who work in children's literature, Maria
Yes, ma'am.
Tartar. We have Zipes. So they have
So,
been
ma'am,
working on it.
this is cultural adaptation.
Yeah.
I would also like you to
Digital.
elaborate on about the digital
Sure.
adaptation. That the main point that I want to focus here is that okay, if we do not have the time, because today a lot of both the parents are
Yeah,
working
yeah.
and with the schedules, it sometimes becomes hard to narrate a story to children. But how can we incorporate
Yeah.
technology
Sure.
and keep up with the art of storytelling with children?
So we have so many audiobooks also available, and that
Yes.
has become a part of curriculum by CBSE in 2021. So they have moved on and changed. Storytelling is a pedagogical tool now.
Okay.
Right, so we have audio visuals, as you know, we all the cassettes are available. But I will talk about digitalization, where people have also ventured into and remade stories into video games, and there's something known as flash adaptation. So in that, I worked on Donna Lishman's flash adaptation of Red Riding Hood. So I'll talk about
Oh,
that.
lovely.
So that flash adaptation is an interactive mode of entering into a tale. So we know Red Riding Hood was a child girl who was sent by her mother, and so we get a picture of wo lal kapde pehen ke, that's
Yes.
skirt with white band, and
Yes.
she's holding that basket of apples,
Apples,
right?
yes.
But here, if you can search and find out online. So we have a vertical building. So it's a
Okay.
cityscape,
Okay.
vertical dark building with windows and open windows, and there's only one well lit window. So
Okay.
that's a prompt.
For the
That's
child.
a prompt given by a creator of flash adaptation to a child, that you can just move your mouse and go to all the windows, and there will be one clickable window.
Yes.
So when you click that, you are shown a half torso of a mother wearing probably western dress,
Yes.
right, short dress, and that girl who's red riding, she is boyish in
Okay.
features, and she has a scooty, and there's no no audio as such, because
Okay.
it is a video game sort of, but
Okay.
it is interactive.
Interactive.
So
And it is already adapted. The temporal adaptation has been done according to the change in
according
time.
to the digital
And
world.
yeah, I mean,
And it also gives a liberty to a child,
yes.
because it gives you options. What do you want Red Riding to do? Should she listen to her mother, or she should not go to her grandmother? So it gives a liberty of for a child that he can think creatively.
Creatively,
and
I
choice
think
also.
it would be empowering for the child that
Yeah.
he's making a choice, and probably the child is living through the story in that moment.
Yeah.
And therefore, I feel the impact, or whatever the teaching of the story is, would be way more powerful, because the child is actually himself
Interacting
running,
and immersive.
immersed into the
Because
story.
now we
Yes.
have moved on to experiences where we immerse our five senses.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have moved from it's from a medium is a message. This
Yes.
is a digital, I am quoting
Yes.
person who's philosopher who works in this. To medium is a massage. So massage is that when your skin is also involved. So
Okay.
it's involving your five senses, because you again might have seen that how creative writing is taught, if at all it can be taught. It cannot be, but still you
Okay.
are told that okay, you're going to beach, you're going to have some experience, then you should have all your five senses involved. Hear what you can,
Yes.
look at what, I mean, you should not be looking at, but you should be reading that.
Yes.
So all the five senses, and also the second is, all the five W's. What is happening, where it is happening, who is doing it, why he's doing it, all
when.
the W's and C's, as it is known as. So
Okay.
C's is about character building, how you move on with the plot and all. So it's creative writing things.
Okay. So, ma'am, as it is popularly said that what we see is what we become, and today's stories are seen rather than heard, with YouTube being there and
Yeah.
children have access. So, I feel that the role of parents here becomes even more important in screening what the children are watching. So, in fact, going for movies has become a common, family time together, going out for movies.
Yeah.
So, watching movies would also be equivalent to, I mean, the impact of movies, do you think is equivalent to narrating stories to children today?
No, I would beg to differ, because we have experienced and we have researched. I'll give you an example. That, do you think watching Harry Potter is more, experiential, or reading a Harry Potter?
Reading,
It's
definitely.
all
I've
about
read them,
why.
I've seen them.
So I'll tell you why. Like, technically why? Because when you're watching same thing, you're watching through the eye of director and a camera. This camera is being held by the director, so he is showing you what he wants you to see.
Yes.
But when you're reading a text, a story, then you have your imagination. So if you are reading, for example, Malguri, so
Yes.
your Malguri will be your childhood. My
Yes.
Malguri will be my childhood,
Absolutely.
with the same enactments happening there.
Yeah.
So that gives a liberty to child's imagination.
Yeah, which is why any story which is told by somebody, it might have a different flavor, because
It has always.
where we emphasize would be different from where some other person
Definitely,
emphasizes.
yeah, because what I am at this point of time is a culmination of what has ever happened, my in this birth or previous birth, if we bring in
Yeah.
karmic theory.
Right.
So yours is your own experiences. So my correspondence at this point is a culmination of my own world.
So, ma'am, in that sense, audiobooks, story narration, either in person or through audiobooks, would be better than having children sit and watch those stories on YouTube, because now there are video, I mean, graphically animated videos also available on YouTube. So, would you think that the storytelling or the audiobooks means would be better than the video version?
See, Adgit, I don't want to, here I don't want to put one up above other, because I think it is who is telling and how it is being told, that is more important. So if you don't have heart into, as a parent also, you are just doing it compulsively because you've learned it after this podcast, but you don't have heart in that. So it's better a child is imbibing from a neutral platform.
Okay.
So here I would also, because you talked about the age groups and all,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
I would, and you also touched upon movies and all.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I think in the formative years, if they are shown and they are directed towards what is to be seen, then afterwards they take a lead. वो उनकी अपनी वो imbibe ऐसे कर लेते हैं कि उनको पता होगा कि ये मुझे देखना है कि नहीं देखना
नहीं
है.
देखना, absolutely.
और जहाँ तक मीडियम का या मोड्स का सवाल है, watching, listening to audio, I think whatever is available, and it also depends upon child's comprehension. One child is very good painter, तो उसको लगेगा कि नहीं मुझे पिक्चर बुक्स मजा करती है क्योंकि वो बहुत नुएंसेस उसमें देखेगा. So one person has inclination towards music, तो उसको वो music, तो मुझे लगता है वो यही because हमारा जो education system है उसमें भी हम इसमें I think we are floundering in this कि what we do is raise the standards. 10th में सबके अच्छे मार्क्स आ जाते हैं. So you raise the standard कि हाँ हम लोग तो medical non-medical सब लोग कर लेंगे. What are we doing? We are playing with child psyche. वही 5th 6th जो formative years होते हैं, every child is an individual. So one can be a good dancer, one can be a good cook, What is bad about it?
Yes.
Right? So, but the thing is, we as parents should be responsible if it's not done at a system level. Humko as a parents, this is my personal request to all the parents. Please look at the potential of your child.
Yes.
And make her carve her niche in that.
Yes, ma'am. We need to figure out that what the child is really good at.
Because I really become sensitive कि हम अपने बच्चों का क्या करते हैं.
Yes,
and we are not empowering them for their lives. How can, I mean, 15 lakh people appearing for one exam? How can you expect that your child will come, top in that?
Yes.
And why should you expect that also?
Expect that also. It's putting a lot of pressure on the child.
This is something which I think it's
Yes,
need to
ma'am.
be done.
In fact, ma'am, I think over there storytelling will be very helpful for parents also.
बिल्कुल.
Because it will help them get new perspectives.
कितना कुछ है दुनिया में करने
Yes.
को. हम सिर्फ एक भेड़ चाल. It's hurt.
Yes, ma'am.
That okay, नहीं doctor or वो. It's high time we should break that stereotype.
Yeah. So, ma'am, I was reading about your book, and in that book, you mentioned that one of the structures of your book, somewhere it mentions that even for good management practices, storytelling is being adopted.
Yeah.
For even HR
people
are
definitely
adopting storytelling for raising the morale, or in their HR activities, they are involving storytelling.
Yeah.
So, what do you have to say about that?
One thing, yes. One motivation or how it started this project was I've already dwelled on, that's moral versus ethics. But if I'm being anecdotal, I would I'll have to bring in a very sad event that happened in India in 2012. You might remember Nirbhaya Kant.
Yes, ma'am.
So it just happened that I was discussing with my husband कि ऐसे कैसे होता है ना कि कोई भी एक delinquent है वहाँ पे, उसने भी crime करा है ना. So we just were discussing. So one opinion was that कि नहीं, जब दोस्तों में ये सब होता है, गलत काम होता है, तो you become a part of it. So my take on was different. So I thought आपके जब ethics बहुत strong होते हैं, फिर दोस्त भी नहीं वहाँ पे आपको वो खराब कर सकते.
Yes.
Then I thought, what is the difference? And the very next day, we at that point of time, Pranab Mukherjee was president. तो न्यूज़पेपर में एक आर्टिकल उन्होंने लिखा that it's a high time that we should rectify our moral compass. So moral compass में फिर मैंने बहुत study करा, emotional intelligence. You remember that 90s was a time of IQ. IQ कितना है इस बच्चे का? ये management में जाएगा and all ना. Then it happened कि IQ से काम नहीं बन रहा है management में, क्योंकि आप तो बिल्कुल ही you're becoming mechanical and atrocious bosses who don't understand importance of relationship.
Yes.
Then we moved on to different quotients in which EQ, BQ.
Okay.
Bio quotient is very important.
Okay. Ma'am, could you talk about bio quotient?
Bio quotient is that your health is important.
Right.
Your SQ is important. Now we have
SQ is, ma'am?
Social quotient.
Right.
Right. And then there is some MQ, moral quotient. Right. So these are important aspects. So you cannot be just traded for one.
Yes.
At staking others.
Yeah. At the same time, ma'am, I feel that all these quotients, I mean, it's very hard to compartmentalize. How can you? They are a part of human nature, and it cannot be divided.
Definitely. And the project started with that ये जो management motivational speakers हैं, ये कहानियाँ सुना के ही तो अपनी बात बोलते हैं.
Yes.
Right. And then stress management. So my point is, stress होना ही नहीं चाहिए.
हाँ जी.
Stress आप बच्चे को 5th 6th वही बात आ जाती है 8th तक ऐसी कहानियाँ सुनाओ कि उनको, I mean, your losses and gains are a part of life.
Yes.
So when you empower a child with that sort of bringing up, he will be able to handle life, and you cannot compartmentalize.
Yeah.
कि हाँ ये life skill है, हाँ ये आपका social skill है, कि हाँ तुम marriage में बेशक unhappy हो लेकिन socially तुम्हारा skill बहुत strong है, ऐसा नहीं होता.
Yes.
A person who is a pleasant personality and he is able to handle, and he knows that what is the fall side of whatever is happening, he will be able to handle. So I
manage it anywhere.
Through my book, I want to tell parents and everybody, systems, that holistic management is something which we should aim at.
Yes.
And these are all compartments in one's life.
Yes.
And one can handle all of them equally well. So you don't have, you don't need marriage counselors. You don't need counsels.
We need stories.
Stories, right? So
Yeah.
stress should not be managed. They should know where to stop. कि ये stress आना ही नहीं चाहिए at a
Yes.
psychological level. If you are irritating me,
Hmm.
fine. One is that I'm getting irritated.
Hmm.
The other is I'm aware of that I am getting irritated and where to stop. That awareness has to be brought in a child.
Yes, ma'am.
Where to stop. एक शील्ड एम्पावरमेंट क्या है, एक आप शील्ड दे रहे हो बच्चे को कि भाई आपको आप एक्सटर्नल सर्कमस्टांसेस को नहीं कर सकते. सर्दी आ रही है, एक्सट्रीम सर्दी आ रही है, आप उसको नहीं चेंज कर सकते हो, आप अपने रिएक्शंस को चेंज कर सकते हो.
In fact, this what you talked about awareness is now today being called off as mindfulness. But a lot of people do not know that mindfulness as a concept came from Buddhism. So the person who got mindfulness to the West, his name is John Kabat-Zinn, and he was a professor, I don't know which subject, at MIT. He is, and he was studying, he was still a student in MIT when he attended a lecture of a Buddhist monk at MIT, and over there he got introduced to meditation. So he got inclined towards it, and he lived with Buddhist monks, and he learned meditation. And when he realized its benefits, he thought that he must bring it to the West. But if he would call it meditation, he thought that the West might not adapt to it.
Yeah,
he had to,
yeah.
like the temporal or the cultural adaptation we were talking about.
Yeah.
He changed it. He changed the name, and he called it mindfulness. And I'm sorry, I cannot remember thoroughly. Stress. He brought about a program called stress reduction, mindfulness-based stress reduction program, and he is the reason that through mindfulness now meditation is being recognized by doctors even. And now if we talk about that, mindfulness has come from Buddhist meditation. So when we are talking about Buddhism, Buddhism also has stories. So the awareness for children may not increase just through meditation. It's very hard for children to sit into meditation, but we can narrate them stories and help them create awareness.
Definitely. And yes, I like that word because meditation has a spiritual and religious connotation कि हाँ कुछ something which is intangible वो पाना है, nirvana. So we don't have to believe in that for sure as far as children are concerned. So mindfulness or meditation, in other words, is mindfulness or one-pointedness. So I have like I use this with my class, which is of young adults. So mindfulness for them or for a child is कि मुझे जो भी मेरी बुक्स हैं या जो सब्जेक्ट है उसको माइंडफुली कैसे पढूं. सो न अच्छे नंबर नहीं, अपना बेस्ट क्या देना है. You know, you have to excel and you have to be a better version of yourself, right? So mindfulness helps in that. That you are, what is mindfulness is that you are involving, again, that moral compass comes into. What is moral compass? Moral compass is when your philosophy or belief, your values, your action, they work in tandem.
Absolutely.
Problem is, I am thinking something, but pressure on of the society and parents is something else, and the result is something else. That is not aligned. So moral compass to bring all the three in tandem, they should work. So what I want is what I'm doing will be mindful.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, the last question for today. So, even mythology, we've spoken a lot about literature, from Jatak to Panchtantra, Buddhist stories and all of that. But mythology, whether it is Islamic mythology or Christian mythology or Hindu mythology, mythology also offers a lot of stories.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people start talking about whether it is really true or not. In Ramayana, Ram really existed or not is not what is very important. What's important is what he stood up for, or what he was, the character that he had.
Purushottam.
Yeah, Purushottam, Maryada Purushottam Ram. So, and in fact, every character, like character of Lakshman as a brother.
It's about relationships.
Yeah, a lot of relationship management. Even from Hanuman, we learn diplomacy. We learned from Hanuman.
Definitely.
So, I feel that mythology also offers a lot of stories which can help in shaping character of children. So you have so much of knowledge on these. Can you?
It's a very interesting, subject of mythology. And if I bring, let's talk about Indian mythology later on. We just move on to even Sikhism. Sikhism में सारी stories साखियाँ आपको कहानी बताती हैं. bravery की,
Yes.
sacrifice. I would dwell on this because we are, I think, addressing young mothers कि हम लोग sacrifice को मैं क्यों करते हैं, हम ये क्यों नहीं करते कि सबके साथ, अब जापान में अर्थक्वेक आया है, कोविड से इतने लोग मरे हैं, राइट, कल हमारे साथ कुछ ट्रेजेडी हो जाती है, सो वी शुड अंडरस्टैंड आई एम अ पार्ट ऑफ अ सेम सिस्टम टुडे, इट हैज हैपेंड टू मी, इजंट इट? सो एंड आई टेल यू, हमारी संस्कृति इतनी स्ट्रांग, हमारे पास इतनी कोविड की डेथ्स नहीं हुई क्योंकि हम सर्वाइव कर रहे हैं सेक्रीफाइस पे. In every family there's one person who sacrifices. Our mothers used to, because वहाँ पे तब education system इतना strong नहीं होता था. But if now there is some woman who's very ambitious, husband has to sacrifice. Sacrifice should not be taken, why me, मतलब मैं क्यों करूँ, मैं भी उतनी जिंदगी जीना चाहते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है. So in this I would also bring in feminism. हमने बहुत ज़्यादा अपने आप को bold बना के क्या करा है, genetic disease आ गई हैं. There are so many children who are born with congenital disease. So it's not worth, isn't it?
Yes,
so we should be ambitious enough, which falls into our ownness, I would say. So
Yes,
it's not, I'm not saying any system. We should be, so if I'm happy at home, why other who is going and earning lakhs?
Yes,
I'm happy at my home.
Yes.
That's peace of mind वहाँ पे है मेरा, है ना?
Yeah.
So अब गुरु गोबिंद सिंह जी के शब्द है जिसमें चंडी चरित है. चंडी को वो लेके आते हैं, गुरु दुर्गा माँ की चंडी है ना, उन्होंने उसको मारा था, जो राक्षस थे. तो उसमें है ये, देव शिवावर मोही एही, शुभ कर्मंते कबू न टरो, कि मुझे आप इतना स्ट्रांग, ये माँ दुर्गा की, माँ दुर्गा, व्हाट इज माँ दुर्गा? इज सिंबॉलिक ऑफ शक्ति. व्हाट इज शक्ति? इट इज एनर्जी. So you may say कि हम माँ दुर्गा को हम क्यों, हमें क्या पता शिव थे. So it is about conscious. What is Shiv? Shiv is consciousness. आपने तो वो सांख्य पढ़ा है, उसमें पुरुष और प्रकृति है. So prakriti means something which is tangible. So I can't just talk about nirvana and God and something which I have not seen and I don't know what heaven is. But I have to live. I have to live my
life in this tangible form. Yeah.
So flesh is going to give me edge over. So you need mind to cut mind.
Yes.
माइंड से माइंड को तोड़ोगे ना, तभी माइंडफुलनेस होगी. वो ये है कि शुभ कर्मन तो कभी ना डरो. करेज कि कोई भी, अब उसमें कितने हमारे एनेक्डोट्स हैं. अभी हमने शहजादों की स्टोरी, अभी हमने उनको सेलिब्रेट सॉर्ट ऑफ, उनको मेमोराइज करा है दिसंबर में, कि कैसे उन्होंने सेक्रीफाइस करा छोटे बच्चे, छोटे शहजादों को, जो बड़े थे उनको कैसे, है ना. तो वो सारी क्या है कि उन्होंने,
मैम, बट these are not mythology.
No, these are not. I'm talking about if we go religion wise. So गुरु नानक जी की मर्दाना के साथ स्टोरीज हैं कि वो कहते हैं कि आप काबा की तरफ पैर करके क्यों आपने रखे हैं. God is everywhere.
Yes.
है ना. Then there is a story which narrates that he goes somewhere. One is one person is rich person. He invites Guru Nanak ji, है ना, for feast. तो वो पहले वो गरीब के घर जाता है. तो वो जब रोटी दोनों की निचोड़ते हैं, एक में से दूध निकलता है, दूसरे में से दूसरे पसीना निकलता है लेबर का, है ना, उसका खून निकलता है इनफैक्ट. सो इट टेल्स कि आप ईमानदारी से काम करो. सो दीज आर फ्रॉम सिखिज्म. देन आपको मैंने इस्लाम की हमारी नसरुद्दीन जी, बड़ा विट्टी
मुल्ला नसरुद्दीन.
So we know that it was telecasted also.
Yes, in fact, I listened to present time revered Saint Om Swami ji, and I read a lot of his books. He uses a lot of Mullah Nasruddin stories.
Many have done. I think Osho also. I'm not sure about it, so I may not be quoted on that. So in Hindu mythology, अब गणेश जी की स्टोरी है कि कैसे wisdom, है ना. अब देखो, एक गणेश जी थे, एक कार्तिकेय जी थे. कार्तिकेय जी was warrior. अब यहाँ पे मैं क्लास कास्ट की बात कर रही हूँ, और I would like to bring कि हमारा caste system is a fallout of class system which was dynamic in a sense that if I might be born into any caste, but if I want to read scriptures, I can be Brahmin. So हमने ये नहीं था कि ब्राह्मण का बेटा ब्राह्मण ही होगा, उससे प्रॉब्लम सारी क्रिएट हुई है, राइट. सो व्हाट आई वाज टेलिंग फॉर हिंदू माइथोलॉजी कि हाँ, कार्तिकेय जी वाज अ वॉरियर, और उस टाइम साउथ में थे असुर बहुत. तो शिवजी ने कार्तिकेय को बोला तुम साउथ संभालो. तो आप वहाँ पे अगर जाएंगे तो आपको शॉप्स पे मोस्टली लिखा होगा कार्तिकेय कार्तिकेय, मुरुगन मुरुगन इज अ वेरी पॉपुलर नेम.
Now it's Quick Gun Murugan.
So it's a name of Kartikeya only,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So Ganesh ji was wise and Ganesh ji को बोला कि तुम पूरा ब्रह्मांड का, दोनों को बोला ना, बच्चे, वो स्टोरी है,
हाँ जी.
दोनों बच्चों को बोला कि जाओ पूरा घूम के आओ. तो गणेश जी was wise, उसने अपने माँ बाप के ही चक्कर काटा, बोला कि मेरे लिए तो आप ही दुनिया हो. तो इस तरह के एनेक्डोट. एकलव्य की स्टोरी आपको पता है कि कैसे लाइक द्रोणाचार्य उनको नहीं सिखा रहे थे बिकॉज ही बिलोंग टू सर्टन क्लास. तो वो बाहर खड़े होके देखते सीखते रहे.
Eklavya really wanted to become a Dhanurdhari.
He was very good, better than Arjun.
He was better than Arjun. But Dronacharya had also promised that he will make Arjun the best archer of the time. So he had to keep his word. And when Dronacharya did not accept him as a student, he would quietly, far away, listen to all the lectures that he would be giving to Arjun and the other disciples on Dhanur, jo bhi iski vidya hai. And when he happened to see once Eklavya's performance, he
he was commendable, better than Arjun. And even Arjun told, he asked Dronacharya ji बाद में कि आपने ऐसा क्यों किया, वो तो मेरे से better था.
You had promised me that you will make the best archer.
नहीं, he said कि नहीं, वो है मेरे से better. द्रोणाचार्य के नहीं, मेरा ये प्रतिज्ञा थी कि तुम ही बेटर होगे, इसलिए he got that thumb of Eklavya and he happily gave.
Dronacharya told him that okay, मुझे गुरु दक्षिणा दो, and Eklavya said okay, what would it be, and he said मुझे अपना अंगूठा दो. तो now he couldn't hold the dhanush only.
बिल्कुल. और इससे ऐसे ही गीत मैंने एक similar story कल पढ़ी.
But ma'am, what is the takeaway from this story of Eklavya?
You were just गुरु की, आजकल तो ये बहुत ज़रूरी है, because आजकल हमारे students ये रिस्पेक्ट छोड़ रहे हैं. उनको लग रहा है कि गुरु हमारे गूगल हैं जो हमारे कॉलेज में हैं. तो मतलब एक ब्लाइंडली ना, ठीक है, जैसे मैंने आपको बोला कि यू मे हैव डिफरेंट ओपिनियन with your parents, right, with your gurus, but there has to be a certain respect that has to be given. तो ये हम बताएंगे कि blindly कैसे वो गुरु ने जो बोल दिया वो करना है. और इसका ये एक एक्सटेंडेड वर्जन जहाँ पे गुरु की इम्पोर्टेंस है कि there was a princess who would say that I would marry person who is better. She was a warrior, right? बहुत अच्छी उसकी वो skills थी. So she told her father that I'm going to marry a person who will defeat me. So and many suitors they come, but they are unable to defeat her. But there's one suitor who keeps on learning from the skills of this girl, right? So after some time he comes as a suitor and he is able to win over her, right? But he says that मैंने तुमसे ही सीखा है. So she says कि अब मैं आपकी गुरु हो गई, and he says कि yes, आप मेरे गुरु हो क्योंकि ये वाली शिक्षा मैंने आपसे ही सीखी है. मैं आपका हस्बैंड नहीं बन सकता. ये देखो, मतलब इस तरह की हमें जो रिविजिटेशंस हैं वैल्यूज की, वो लानी पड़ेगी अपने स्ट्रक्चर, अपने सोसाइटल स्ट्रक्चर को स्ट्रॉन्ग रखने के लिए.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so storytelling, do you think can have an impact on mental health of children?
Definitely, all about psychology. So it's all about psychology. How to keep, we are born very balanced personalities. You know, if there's a neonatal response, neonatal response is the highest emotional response in a sense. Neonatal responses कि जब child ward, जब न्यू बॉर्न बेबीज होते हैं, एक बच्चा रोता है सब रोने लग जाते हैं ना, that's a neonatal response. Okay. When you go to kindergarten, I remember my son used to cry. So वो जब स्कूल में टीचर सबको चुप करवाती थी, ये जाता था तो ये रोता था तो सब रोने लग जाते थे. So you know, that's what is that? That is empathy. You know, EQ is very strong with children. Yes. It's only with sort of formalizing and education.
And children I've seen, ma'am, they are very self-sufficient. They love playing alone.
Definitely.
They don't seek validation.
I would like to, yes, maybe you know, this is very important point. हमें लगता है कि हम नहीं होंगे तो बच्चों का क्या होगा, वो बहुत सेल्फ सफिशिएंट होते हैं. वी शुड गिव देम देयर स्पेस, व्हिच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो आई माइट यू नो टेक अवे फ्रॉम दिस फ्रॉम एन ऑटोबायोग्राफी ऑफ अब्दुल कलाम जी, जिसमें ही वाज यू नो गोइंग फॉर हिज फर्दर एजुकेशन. ओके, आई थिंक इट्स विंग्स ऑफ फायर. तो उनकी मदर रो रही होती है क्योंकि बहुत दूर जाना पड़ता था. ही वॉज अ स्मॉल टाउन बॉय. सो शी सेज नो, यू डोंट हैव टू गो हायर स्टडीज़ के लिए, मत जाओ, तुम यहीं पे काम करो एंड ऑल. एंड आई ऑलवेज कोट. तो उनके फादर बोलते हैं कि व्हाई डू यू थिंक योर सन इज योर, यू आर जस्ट अ मीडियम ऑफ बर्थ. दिस इज गॉड्स बीइंग, तुम उसको रोक नहीं सकते हो.
Yes.
So हमको अपने बच्चों को possess नहीं करना है, उनकी abilities को strong करना है. That's our responsibility.
Absolutely.
Right?
So it has been such a wonderful conversation, ma'am. You have so many more things, I'm sure, to offer, but because of paucity of time, we have to stop here. And I think my takeaway from this session is that storytelling can be a great medium for shaping the character, the building, in fact, raising leaders.
Yeah.
Bringing
Sure.
out children with stable mental health. And that is one thing that we can really offer to our children. And I think parents should invest time in storytelling with children. And if that is not possible, then maybe take help of digital mediums and so on.
Yeah.
And ma'am, I'm going to be coming back with you soon again. I would like to tell my audience that you've also written a lot of papers on homosexuality.
Gender fluidity.
Gender fluidity, sorry. Yeah, gender fluidity and homosexuality is another topic that you can talk on. So homosexuality in children is something, again, we are going to explore, and
Definitely.
that's a talk that we are going to come out with and back soon on Simply Spiritual.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.